What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This one I'm going to be going over my 5 worst values at the tight end position this year in fantasy football. This will be my last video going over best and worst values. I'll probably try and do another one, touch up on these come August when we get deeper into draft season. But for now, it'll be done here. So if you haven't watched any of the other 7, please do go take the time to go watch those. I break down values and bad values at all the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end positions. So I think you guys will find them pretty useful. I think it's been really useful for myself to do this as well. I've been just finishing up my rankings and projections. It's been fun to sort of go through those and see how those stat out compared to ADP. With that being said, I want to make a note that my rankings and projections are out for free on my website. Just go to realsteelffb.com and you can see those there. If you have any questions or anything you think I should adjust there, please let me know. I'd love to see what input you have, and maybe I can take a look and adjust my rankings based on some of your feedback. So, yeah, with that being said, let's get into the first player here. So starting us off here, I've got George Kittle. He's just a tight end that I haven't found myself drafting very much of. I've got him statted out as my tight end 7, with despite an ADP of tight end 4, which I think is just a little bit too high for me. He really did perform really well down the second half of the season last year, putting up 7 touchdowns in a 4-week stretch, which is obviously great, and we know that he's a great enough player to put that together. But his previous career high in touchdowns over the course of a season was 6. There are some question marks around this passing game. We don't quite know who the quarterback's going to be. We also know that in general, it seems like George Kittle sort of just becomes an unnecessary weapon in this offense when Ayuk, Debo, and CMC are all healthy. So I think he's going to be a really talented player, but it's just not going to really carry over to fantasy. He's probably going to receive the 4th most targets in this offense behind, like I said, Debo, Ayuk, and CMC. And really the only way he pays off at this ADP is if he ends up putting up that fluky touchdown protection again, which is possible. It's also possible that Brock Purdy comes back and makes this offense really good. But in general, I think they're going to be a run heavy attack, and the target share is just not going to be high enough for George Kittle to pay off at this ADP. So I find myself passing on him. I just don't think he's going to be the difference maker that he's been in the past. Next up, I've got Darren Waller here. I've got him statted out as my tight end 10 despite an ADP of tight end 7. And I think the reason for this is I just have no confidence in the Giants offense. I'm projecting him to be the lead target in this offense. I'm projecting him to score the most receiving touchdowns, put up the most receiving yards, and it still really just doesn't stat out very well for him to be a very meaningful fantasy producer. And I think that with that being said, that's me being pretty generous in assuming that he's actually healthy and talented and not washed. And I think that there really is a world that exists where Darren Waller's just over the hill here. He's not a very talented tight end anymore. He'll have a hard time staying healthy. It's been 3 years since we've really seen Darren Waller be a meaningful difference maker in fantasy. And it's just really rare that we see players put up season after season of disappointment and then bounce back after that. So it's just not something that I'm looking to go fishing for. I think certainly maybe it's possible that Daniel Jones takes another step forward. Darren Waller is potentially the guy that helps him do that. Maybe Darren Waller does put up a 1,000-yard season and breaks my projections a little bit, but it's just going to be hard for him to really put up too many points in the touchdown department, given that I don't think there are going to be too many passing touchdowns to go around in this Giants offense in general. Like along with that, they're going to be a more run-heavy offense than we'd probably hope. That's especially assuming if Saquon Barkley stays on the team, doesn't hold out this season. So if that's the case, there aren't going to be too many pass attempts to go around, not too many passing touchdowns. So he would just need an absolutely monster target share. I'm giving him a 21% target share in my model, which is honestly really great for a tight end, but it's just not going to be enough to make him that tight end 7. Next up, I've got Kyle Pitts. I've got him statted out as my tight end 17, despite an ADP of tight end 5. And first off, I just want to start off by saying that obviously I would take Kyle Pitts ahead of tight end 17. There are a lot of tight ends that just don't have the ceiling Kyle Pitts does, because I think Kyle Pitts is truly an elite talent at the tight end position. But I can't really allow from a projection standpoint for him to be much higher than that. The Falcons offense is probably going to run the most in the NFL this year. They did very close to that last season. They invested the 8th overall pick in Bijan Robinson. They've got a really good offensive line. Arthur Smith has made it abundantly clear what he wants to do with this offense, and their quarterback's going to be Desmond Ridder, so they didn't address that quarter position at all. There's no real reason to assume that this offense is going to take a step forward in the passing game. And on top of that, there's a very realistic expectation from my end that he ends up being the number 2 target in this offense. Drake London is just a really talented wide receiver. He ended up last season with a 30% target share, which is absolutely insane. So you're going to have Kyle Pitts being probably the number 2 option. Maybe you could call it a 1B to Drake London's 1A. But regardless, he's going to be not a monster of a target hog in an offense that's just not going to have many targets to go around. So he's going to have to just be extremely efficient, and really, he can do that, but that's going to require him to be much more efficient than he was last year. You're going to require Desmond Ridder to actually be decent. And on top of that, Kyle Pitts hasn't really been much of a touchdown scorer over the first 2 years of his career. Even in his rookie year, where he broke 1,000 yards, he only had 1 receiving touchdown. I don't think there's going to be too many opportunities for this team to pass the ball in the end zone very often. So I don't really see a world where Kyle Pitts puts up a even a 5 touchdown season, and it's just going to be really hard for him to put up the kind of numbers that you're looking for if you're drafting him at tight end 5. So I just can't find myself drafting him really much at all. I think that there are plenty of other tight ends with just as high of upside that you can get way cheaper, and I just can't justify drafting Kyle Pitts this season. Going a little bit deeper here, Cole Kmet's another guy that I just find myself not drafting at all. I've got him ranked as my tight end 24 despite an ADP of tight end 16. So obviously at tight end 16, he's effectively free in redraft this season. So I don't think it's a huge deal if you really want to take a gamble on him. But he's at best the third target in this offense, obviously behind DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney. And it's not unlikely at all that Chase Claypool ends up being the number 3 option here. So there's just not a whole lot of upside for him given that he's going to be the number 3 or number 4 target in an offense that's going to pass near the bottom rate in the league, and they're probably not going to score very much this season. I don't project them to be a very elite offense. I think they'll be better than they were the last couple years, but that really doesn't mean a whole lot. Obviously, I suppose it's possible that Justin Fields just takes a crazy leap forward and we see him be this year's Jalen Hurts, but I don't really see that happen. I think he's far more raw as a passer. I think that the other weapons around him, the offensive line, just all the pieces in place aren't really set up to make this Bears offense succeed. Their coaching staff's not very offensive minded as well. So I don't see a world really where this Bears offense shocks us. And they would absolutely need to shock us for Cole Kmet to really be worth drafting this season. So even though he's not being drafted very high, I just don't even think he's really worth a draft pick and redraft. I think I'd rather just take flyers on guys that are in more prominent offenses and just see what happens there. And last year I've got Dalton Schultz. I almost left this video short at 4 tight ends instead of 5, but I figured just to throw a 5th one on here, I'd go to Dalton Schultz. I've got him ranked by tight end 15 despite an ADP of tight end 12, so I don't think he's an exactly horrible draft pick. It's just that he isn't an elite talent by any means. He's been effective in fantasy because he's gotten a lot of volume from Dak Prescott and an offense that really uses the tight end quite a bit. And I don't know that I can guarantee that this is going to be an offense in Houston that utilizes the tight end as much as they did in Dallas. There's obviously going to be less scoring opportunities in this Houston Texans offense. We expect them to be bad. They've got a rookie quarterback, really young receiving core, not really much to really look to be excited about on the offensive side of the ball there. And obviously they're going to pass a lot less as well. I expect them to be much more run heavy. They aren't going to want to expose CJ Stroud just yet. They're going to want to ease him in. They're going to try and run the ball with Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary. So I mean, there is a chance that Dalton Schultz leads the team in targets, and I actually have him projected as the number 2 target leader in this offense, just behind Nico Collins. But I gave CJ Stroud a very generous rookie projection. I projected him for over 3,000 yards and over 20 touchdowns, which is that's pretty solid for a rookie, and it still just doesn't stat out well for Dalton Schultz to be very meaningful in fantasy. So I just don't think there's really any upside for him there. Even if he ends up being the number 1 target in this offense isn't going to be good enough for that to really matter. So I don't think Dalton Schultz is worth really looking at in redraft. I just don't think he gives you any of that upside that's really going to make a difference for you in your leagues this year. That'll do it for my worst values at the tight end position. That'll also close us out on our best and worst values across all 4 positions here. So it's been really fun making these videos. It's been fun interacting with you guys and seeing which guys you agree and disagree with me on. If there were any players I didn't mention on this list that you thought I should have, or any players that you disagree with, please let me know in the comments. I'd love interacting with you guys and sort of trying to come to a consensus there. Up next, I'll be doing my league-winning wide receivers video. So I'll go over 5 receivers that I think have league-winning upside, and then I'll do the same thing for running back, quarterback, tight end, and then I'll maybe get into sleepers and then maybe some draft strategy stuff as well. So it's going to be a busy off season. We're going to be getting a lot of videos out there, and if you want to see those, please do take a minute to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like this video, which I hope you did, especially if you made it this far, please do take a minute to like the video. It really helps with the algorithm. I'm really trying to grow this channel and make it as big as we can. I think we're at like 337 subscribers last I checked. I've got a pretty outlandish goal of hitting 1,000 by the start of the NFL season. It's probably not going to happen, but let's see what we can do. So with that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video, and I'll catch you next time.